So welcome to the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist, here to support you in overcoming disordered eating and finding peace with food. So thank you so much for listening today. Now, before I dive in today, I just want to apologize for the inconsistency and random posting of different podcast episodes over the last couple of weeks. So we have had a bit of an internet broadband blunder here where I'm living in Essex, where the broadband cable was cut, unfortunately, by a workman who was doing some waterworks in our close, and the cable was cut. We didn't actually realise that the cable had been cut. We thought it was some other kind of issue. And anyway, long story short, 2.5 weeks later, we're still not properly back connected to the internet. We've got some sort of temporary kind of little modem box thing that we are using on the 4G Wi-Fi, keeping us going, but it has just meant that I haven't been able to access my laptop or my podcast resources, my Substack, everything in the usual way. Obviously, I've still had my phone, but I am an old person and I'm not good at typing any long form content on my phone, and also I rely on my laptop for a lot of the processing side of my podcast. So anyway, I apologize for all of that. So I'm just getting back into it now. But if you are a regular receiver of my Substack emails and a listener of the podcast, you've probably just seen quite a lot of inconsistency where sometimes a post is on Substack, sometimes a podcast is up, but they don't match. Whereas normally I try to have that consistency where you've got the choice of reading the article or listening to the podcast, but you've got everything kind of going out in one go. But there you go. These things happen, and I've never appreciated Wi-Fi so much in my whole life. So just to say to you as well that my app, my Food Freedom app, has now 20% off until the 2nd of January. So if you're interested in getting my app, you can click on the link in the show notes. It will take you there, 20% off. You can just sign up on a monthly basis if you want to sort of test it out first, see how you get on with it. But it's a great way to access lots of my content in one place. It's got loads of videos, lots of reading material. Also, it uses AI, which breaks down a lot of the material into manageable chunks. So every day you get like a new little bit of reading or a bit of inspiration. You get a chance to check in as well to track your progress. And it can be tailored as well to support you if you want to learn more intuitive eating. It can really support you with that. But if you're someone who is more in a disordered or eating disordered place, it can also support you with things like binge eating, stopping purging, reducing over exercise, all of the things. Okay, so, and the feedback I've had so far from people using the app has been really positive, so do go and check it out. The link is in the show notes. Okay, so I wanted to talk about 3 potential triggers for eating disorder recovery at Christmas, and to talk about different ways to deal with these things, because I think many of our clients have been expressing a lot of anxiety over the last few weeks about Christmas rapidly approaching, all the food, all the different eating occasions, and wanting to know how to navigate this. So let's talk a bit more about this. So number 1 trigger, which I think can be really, really unhelpful, is that people are always talking about their eating, or maybe even your eating. Okay, now back in the day, people used to always be talking more about things like Weight Watchers and Slimming World and all of that kind of stuff. But these days, it's more likely to be intermittent fasting, maybe Tim Spector's Zoe app, going on about gut microbiome or something. It tends to be a bit more wellness-y these days. And then I guess also in the last year, there's been fast progression of many people using the skinny jab, either openly or not so openly. But that's a whole nother thing as well, where some people in your family maybe have visibly lost weight. Maybe they're not really eating normally anymore. They're eating much, much less. So there's all this stuff, isn't there, going on around eating. So if you're struggling with an eating disorder, it's really, really challenging to be around people who are eliminating food groups, going hours without eating, evangelizing about the health benefits of certain foods, demonizing others, talking about how well their intermittent fasting program is going, etc., etc., etc. All very triggering. So I guess what's so important here is you have 100% permission to stay in your recovery lane, okay? Don't get into these conversations. Just realize everyone is on their own journey. And however wonderful it might sound with people talking about the superb benefits of all these different eating plans, we know that there is no magic pill to all of this. I work with many people who on the surface rave about their intermittent fasting or whatever, and behind the scenes they have a raging eating disorder and they are really struggling. So I'm not saying that everyone that intermittent fast has got an eating disorder, but I just think it's not necessarily all as it seems on the surface. And in a way, like, what people want to do with their own food is their own business. The important thing is for you to get in your recovery lane. Try not to get into the conversations, okay? You know, you can change the subject. If you have to, you can walk away. You could just say, you know, don't really want to talk about that, thank you. And you can do it kindly, you can do it politely. You can, you know, it doesn't have to be kind of some big, horrible conflict conversation, okay? So I would say for you as well, get so rooted in your why and remember, you know, why you're on this recovery road in the first place. You don't want to just get derailed by people blubbering on about all this other stuff. You are on the recovery road for a reason. Really get behind yourself, stay aligned. You do not need to be derailed or thrown off track by someone's likely wellness fad, okay? Just stay in your own lane. Okay, number 2. So something else that often happens at Christmas is, I think, often, you know, in families, people might not eat anything for hours, or, you know, they might get up and have a glass of champagne or something and a couple of chocolates and then don't really eat anything, and they're kind of saving themselves almost for this great big volume of food in one go with loads of alcohol, you know, later on in the day. Now, again, peace and love to anyone who's in a peaceful place with food, you know, completely fine. But, you know, if you are recovering from an eating disorder, if you are, you know, whether it be anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, OSFED, it's probably not going to be massively helpful for you to go for a really, really long time and to try without eating and to try and do what these other people are doing, okay? So in eating disorder recovery, going for long periods without eating and then eating a lot of food, maybe hitting the alcoholic drinks, an abundance of food on an empty and hungry stomach, is not usually really not very, very helpful, okay? Because you're highly likely to be more vulnerable to either getting a tummy ache, maybe falling into binge eating if that's something you struggle with, or other disordered eating behaviors. You're more likely to undereat or overeat. You might develop physical digestive issues which make you feel really unwell. So what you need to do here is, even if everyone else is not having breakfast, people aren't having their snacks or lunch, they're all saving themselves for their big, big meal, you just need to keep going with your regular eating and fuel yourself throughout the day, okay? Now, this is true whatever body size you are, not just for people who are underweight, okay? It doesn't matter if other people aren't doing it. Then, when you have your Christmas dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, just include this as part of your regular eating plan. You know, eat to hunger and fullness. You don't have to go crazy. You know, you want to have your adequate amount of food, your adequate portion, but you can just treat it like a normal recovery meal. Okay, whereas if you try to do what everyone else is doing, if you haven't eaten all day, you start drinking, you have a huge portion, you're much more vulnerable to slipping into a not so good place. Okay. And number 3, people offering you food all day. So I think, again, this is something, isn't it, where you can always feel like, you know, you go around someone's house or you're at home and there's crisps out, there's chocolates out, everyone's kind of nibbling peanuts out or whatever. And you almost feel like, oh my goodness, I need to show everyone that I'm properly recovered and I can do this and I've got a really normal, healthy relationship with food. And, you know, you're trying to sort of, you know, show everyone you're progressing and everything. But when you're in eating disorder recovery, you don't need to eat absolutely everything that is offered to you, okay? That is not true, okay? You can make choices and feel empowered in how you are taking care of yourself. So I'm not saying to you, don't have the food offered to you because if you're trying to restrict, but I would say that you need to prioritize your regular eating, your snacks, and that can include having some of these foods that are offered to you in the plan if you want to. But you need to really take hold of the reins, be in the driving seat of your recovery. Okay, so it's really important you could include foods that are handed round as part of your recovery eating. But what you don't want to do is feel pressured into eating foods that perhaps you don't really want or don't quite align with where you're at recovery in that moment. And then it means that you end up restricting later or it triggers a binge or whatever. Okay, so you need to just really look after yourself. Okay. Yes. And if you choose to, you might choose to have the foods that are handed around because you're feeling much more relaxed and at peace at the moment. But if you're not, it's okay. So make it a choice, okay? Don't feel pushed into eating. Act out of intention and self-care rather than a panic decision, a rabbit in the headlights trying to please everyone when you feel forced to comply and fit in. Okay, so that's my little episode for this week. Do go and check out my app if you're interested, 20% off. Link is in the show notes. If you're interested in working one-on-one with me, I will be taking on more people in the new year. So you can contact me, harriet.frew@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, I would be so grateful if you'd follow, rate and review as it helps it reach so many more listeners. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.